President Park Geun-hye has made a state visit to France. The president's visit this time has a significant meaning as it took place on the invitation of the French President Hollande, commemorating the 130th anniversary of the diplomatic ties between the two countries. On today's Upfront, we discuss the significance and achievement of the president's visit to France.
President Park Geun-hye has embarked on her trip to France following the state visit to Africa. Marking the 130th anniversary of the diplomatic ties between Korea and France, President Park received the invitation of French President François Hollande. It has been the first visit of the Korean president to France in the past 16 years. France has the world's sixth largest economy by nominal GDP, and it also has been singled out as one of the cultural powerhouses. Moreover, France has been one of the greatest partners of Korea in terms of the Korean government's policy for the creative economy as well as the cultural enrichment. The Korean wave in France has been evolved into a variety of genres, including food, broadcasting, and beauty. And French people have been known to have a positive image of Korea as an economic powerhouse with advanced culture. President Park's visit to France has become an important milestone in strengthening bilateral cooperation between the two countries. Also, France hosted Korean Culture Week, coinciding with the president's state visit to the country. A variety of programs have been prepared, including performances, exhibitions, and symposiums in 9 different cities, including Paris, and it has shown the significance of President Park's visit to France. Aside from cultural exchanges, the two leaders have discussed ways to boost cooperation in the field of future growth engines, including ICT, bioindustry, and hydrogen-powered cars. Korea and France have also adopted a joint statement celebrating the 130th anniversary of bilateral diplomatic relations, which will contribute to hardening the bilateral cooperation in the near future. Along with the achievement made in the field of the creative economy and the cultural enrichment policies, President Park Geun-hye was granted an honorary Doctor of Science degree from Pierre and Marie Curie University. President Park has improved bilateral cooperation with France through her 4-day trip to France. Upfront discusses the achievement and significance of the president's visit to France.
We're joined by great experts here in the studio. First, we're joined by Kim Tae-hyun, Professor of International Relations at Chung-Ang University, and Park Tae-woo, Research Professor of the Institute of Sustainable Development at Korea University. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting me today.
Let's start with the significance of this state visit. This is the third time President Park has visited in 2013 and 2015. So this time around, what's the significance of his visit?
I think this is really surprising to me that she has paid already third visit to a country which seems pretty remote. But anyway, this is important because this is in commemoration of 130th anniversary of opening the diplomatic relations. And also this will be a state visit. She will receive a red carpet and 21 gun salute. In terms of diplomatic protocols, so I expect that it will boost bilateral relations very significantly in the future.
I see. It's different from official visit the last time the president had. State visit is more elevated visit as a guest of the country.
Yeah, she is visiting the Republic of France as head of state of the Republic of Korea.
I see. Okay. Same question to Professor.
When President Hollande of France visited our country last year, he shared some, very important word, like copain, something like that, which means that the those people who share bread such a long time feel like family, something like that. It means that the last diplomatic tie, which lasted 130 years, really gave us a lot of interest as well as some areas to more compromises. So this time, I think President Park Geun-hye's visit made a lot of contributions to boosting mutual ties, I think.
I see. I see. We'll explore many aspects of this significance, but let's kind of step back and look at the significance France itself, and also, in particular, how France figures to a Korean situation.
Yeah, we are saying that this is 130th anniversary, but it's almost not 150th anniversary of first confrontation between Korea and France in 1866, when we had a small military skirmish in which Spanish sent a fleet to Ganghwa Island, and because in protest of our government oppression of those Catholic people in Korea. So that was like long ties. Since then, two countries has developed very strong relations. And 20 years later, we opened diplomatic relations officially, which was broken because of Japanese colonial rule. But we opened after our independence. Then in the 1950s, during the Korean War, France sent thousands of troops to help us as a permanent member of the United States Security Council. So, I mean, since then, France is an important partner as a military ally. Also, France has been a very strong guardian of non-proliferation regime of the nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction. And so France has been very close with us in handling with North Korea's challenge about nuclear weapons program as well.
Right. Recently, we had a bilateral summit since 2013. So, other than the historical significance, it seems like we're getting closer.
That's right. And Professor Kim mentioned the North Korean issues. Out of 28 European Union members, France and Estonia have not established the formal diplomatic ties with North Korea because they accepted our government, understanding on North Korean issues. This is very important. So I think we have about 3 reasons why mutual ties must be more strengthened. First, in terms of economic exchanges, France is the 5th largest volume economy in the world. It means that we have to improve more trade volumes in the future. And the second, on political terms, I think as Professor Kim mentioned, France is a standing member of United Nations Security Council, which means that when North Korean issues will be more worsened and more moving into a wrong directions, France could contribute more to solve those kind of issues, including North Korean nuclear issues. And also the third one is a industrial policy orientation that we share with France, because France also was, economically much more developed by industrial policy, government-led, industrial paradigm shift, something like that. So South Korea and France is sharing a lot of similarities in industrial policy implementations. So all in all, I think, France and South Korea, there are some areas which complementarity could be applied, but we have more areas, to upgrade our mutual interest in the future.
And so historically, economically, politically, there are similarities in the rooms of collaboration.
Yes.
Something that we can add to that is a cultural exchange. It seems like there is a rising interest in France about Korea. K-pop is one, and Korean cuisines, and in other aspects. Why is there a growing interest, and specifically, how do they see Korea at this point?
What do you think? What comes to your mind first if you think of France? So many things. I mean, if we are living in the modern
Cuisine,
history,
fashion.
yes, France is, I think, one of the 3 most important countries in the history, in the worldwide. I mean, history. It set up the establishment of modern nation states ever since 17th century with the Sung King Louis XIV, and also it set up the first democracy through French Revolution in 1789, and you can also think of the great conqueror Bonaparte Napoleon, all those kind of things. So France is important in terms of political development and as well as setting up the modern history. Against that kind of backdrop, as of now and since the past decades, France has been the country that has visited the most by foreign visitors. That is, France has that much attractions, particularly its culture and food and so on. Now, we are living in the 21st century where the paradigm is shifting from, let's say, industry or manufacturing into culture. And so that is kind of a shift. And also, we will talk about it later, but our president has emphasized creative economy. Where is the creative? Creative is coming from cultural inspirations. So we would get a lot of inspirations from French cultures. And of course, France is also interested in Korea's culture. If you think of the popularity of K-pop, so Korean dramas worldwide, you cannot be amazed because of that kind of creativity. I'm always amazed whenever I see those kind of K-pops and things. I'm thinking of our youngsters in this country who spend their childhood spending in the classrooms preparing for the class, but still they have that kind of creativity and imagination and inspirations. So from that perspective, we can learn a lot from French cultural inspirations, and we can also give a lot of inspirations to French people as well from cultural perspective.
I see. You skillfully kind of interweaved this cultural aspect of it and also economy, specifically kind of a future aspect of the economy. We'll talk more about that, certainly. Let's focus on the state visit itself. We had President Hollande visiting Korea last year as a state visit and adopted what is kind of long title, the France-Korean Action Plan for 21st Century Strengthened Comprehensive Partnership. It seems like, as you have mentioned, there is a growing interest between the two countries. And this year, there's a joint statement, obviously, because of the 130th anniversary. Now, do you see, how do you put these developments in context? Do you see us getting closer or getting into new frontiers?
That's right. We are getting closer and closer. The reason why French people are more moved by our pansori singing, when our pansori singer An Suk-sun and some famous pansori singers performed there, French people showed great interest in emotional sharing with us. It means that culturally we have some emotional similarities with them. This is very important to improve future ties in the future. And also out of this time's visit President Park Geun-hye made during the last 4 days, I think, we expect certain achievement, especially on the expansion of trade and investment. That's the most important areas to be facilitated in the future. And second one is a new industry areas, something like ICTs, bio industries, hydrogen cars, something like that. And also, President Park Geun-hye has emphasized on the very importance of the creative economy and cultural enrichment activities. And the French exactly understood our positions, and they are eager to expand this kind of cooperation in the future. Also, I think French's diplomatic stance on the international stage, like supporting climate change, accord or something like that, will be very much helpful for South Korea and France to be more cooperative in the future field, I think.
There are multiple fronts on this. One of the things you've mentioned, I think Professor Kim, you have mentioned that the French is, of course, a permanent member of the Security Council, and we have a North Korea issue on which the UN Security Council resolution is kind of a forefront at this point. Obviously, people would think that the closer ties with one of the permanent members of the Security Council will help our effort in dealing with North Korea. Do you agree?
And we can approach that from two perspectives. On the one hand, France is, one of 5 permanent members to U.S. Security Council. That is, and also France has been really strong guardian of non-proliferation regimes. So France has always been very tough stance on those kind of countries who are trying to violate those kind of regimes and rules and norms. And so in that sense, France is standing that one. And also, North Korea itself has been challenged against non-proliferation has really strengthened ever since this year. Nuclear tests, long-range missile tests, and the submarine SLBM tests, all those kind of things. So itself, France has been very tough on. Without our efforts, France will stand firm against North Korea itself. On the other hand, on the one hand, we are meeting challenges from North Korea. On the other hand, we are trying to lead the current situation into a situation where it's helpful for our unification or peace and so on. So we have our own stance, and we have more at stake with North Korea than France. So we can lead France stance towards to the benefits of our national interests, of course, mutual interests, but we can persuade France to pay more attention to that, and why it is not just for the world stability, but because of the Korean nations and so on. That kind of aspect we can put it in the French side.
Obviously, politically, this is a worthwhile collaboration between the two countries.
Historically, when the Korean War broke out, the French government sent about 30,400 soldiers to protect South Korea from communist invasion there. And since that time on, sharing the liberal democratic concept, France has been a strong supporter of South Korea against North Korea, I think. Also, France is a major engine of the European Union, more integrations, politically, economically. And as you see, since we finished the FTA with European Unions, European Union is approaching with more political, I think, motivations toward South Korea, so especially the issues, the nuclear issues, something like that, by having strategic partnership. And France is one of the major countries out of 28 European Union members to push with this kind of a political, I think, agreement with not official, but unofficial political engagement with the Korean Peninsula in the future. So I think, in a larger framework, European Union major engines, in a bilateral framework, France itself has been a strong supporter of our government diplomatic policies as well as North Korean policies on the Korean Peninsula.
I see. That's kind of multiple fronts that we can work together. Isn't there a side note to this, though? The President Park has spent 6 months back in 70s studying abroad in France. So other than the obvious importance of France in international political and economic field, but I'm sure there is a little bit of kind of nostalgia as well for the president.
I think so, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see our president visiting France in this particular year in commemoration of the anniversary. But I say, thinking back, in her first year as a president, she chose France to visit. It's a little bit nostalgia thing. At the time, I remember that she was visiting on all the house she used to live and so on. So that one element. Yeah. France is a very, very good, comfortable country. I paid only one visit to France, but I never felt a foreign there. Paris is so comfortable, such a country. Yeah.
I see. We've discussed the significance of the president's state visit to France. Let's take a look at the highlights of the president's visit to France before we take an in-depth analysis of the economic and cultural cooperation between the two countries.
프랑스의 과학 기술력과 한국의 응용 생산 기술을 결합하면 에너지 신산업, ICT, 바이오 같은 신산업에서 양국은 서로 윈윈할 수 있을 것입니다.
Professor Park, let's talk about the similarities between the two countries. You mentioned that, and I kind of remember in 2012 when Hollande came into the power, his mandate was pretty clear. He was going up against the austerity regime of the Germany, but at the same time there was a clear economic mandate of spurring the economy, and that's kind of a challenge that we have. And his focus was what we would term as a creative economy, and they had a lot of initiatives. And what do you think about this kind of similar situations between the two countries?
Right. Since President Hollande visited last year, 2015, and also extending to 2016, we both countries designated 2 years as the year of mutual exchanges, and then a lot of ceremonies and seminars, also cultural events are going on. About 297 or something like that. Also, all together in the future, also some of them will be going on something like that. It means that emotionally and culturally, economically, we are sharing a lot of similarities. A lot of programs are going on in France, in South Korea, totaling about 300 or something like that. And the concept of a creative economy is strongly supported by France. As everybody was surprised that the Socialist Party President Hollande, labor reforms. He even risked his political base, losing election in the next time. But he decided to the interest of France itself. I was surprised how such a good politician is leading France, something like that. Like that, our President Park Geun-hye is also pushing ahead with economic labor reform agendas based on creative economy. I think this kind of spirit shared by the two countries very, I think, meaningful and valuable in the future to be more facilitated, something like that. Of course, we have about 15,000 Korean French living in France, something like that. But those are the people who are also promoting small sector to sector, the areas mutual interest between the two countries, I think. So the concept of creative economy is implemented more and more accepted by France in the areas of economics, not only in economics, also by many cultural seminars and events, something like that.
What is interesting is as Professor Park has mentioned, in the face of economic, I would say, crisis. Because of the high unemployment rate and the need for reform, the President Hollande chose to go to more of a creative economy route. And Korea is probably taking the kind of similar routes. And
Yes,
that kind of similarities, is there significance?
Yeah, I mean, as Professor Park just mentioned, he is a leftist platform, but he was kind of rightist reform measures that surprised everybody, and he even risked his political future. But let's think of this way: we are talking about already what is called so-called fourth industrial revolution. We had the first, second, third, now fourth, and some people are saying that 500 firms in top 500 firms in Fortunes selected in 1955. 2 years ago in 2014, 88% of them are gone. So people say that is kind of creative destruction. The world is changing so rapidly in terms of technology and ideas. So creative economy is really creative idea and important idea for our president. And so we need, but that is just imagination, creation or inspiration. But how can turn it into our daily lives, in welfare levels, into real economy? But material economy is really harder thing to do. So, I mean, she can learn. I think she has learned already. Whether he has to talk with President François Hollande about his labor reform and how France is seeing such kind of challenges in the future into its economy and industries. And so they have talked about possible cooperation in the new emerging industries, and that will help us to boost our economy, which is quite stagnant these days.
So in that sense, I note that the President was accompanied by this economic delegation, and what is remarkable is that out of 169 business executives that accompanied the President, over 80% of the executives were from the small to mid-sized business firms. So that kind of goes well with the theme that the new revolution, the fourth revolution, that focuses on not on much on the manufacturing side of it, but more innovation side, more technology, more cutting-edge technologies.
That's right.
So there seems to be a kind of running theme in terms of what to promote and what to work on.
So this time economic delegation size of almost 170, 80% of them are from small and medium-sized
Right.
companies, especially specializing in creative economy and the cultural enrichment activities field, I think. So they are holding business, they were holding business forums, also person-to-person business consulting. And I think this time, out of this visit, between the two governments, also, but company-to-contract has been going on very well. But government-to-government level, more than 20 MOUs between two governments, on the future exchanges, especially on the future generation cooperation, was concluded. This is very important. Also, when President Park Geun-hye was awarded with doctoral degree, a Doctor of Science degree at Pierre and Marie Curie University, Paris No. 6 University, she delivered a speech, creating a very important Korean economic spirit there. She delivered that Korea's creative economy and the cultural enrichment activities are such a very important area that to be shared with France in the future. So we need to strengthen our cooperative frameworks in these two fields, and she was very much supported by this university officials and students at the time, and she was awarded with the degree there.
Mm-hmm. For us old-timers, the University of Paris 6 is better known as, to the old-timers, Sorbonne University. Yeah. When a university awards, I heard that this is the first time that they awarded it to a head of state. But I'm involved in the university matters, but when we do that, there is recognition specifically on certain matters. Do you think that this awarding signifies a certain recognition that President Park has been pushing for creative economy and cultural enrichment?
Yeah, I think that she created the creative economy as a kind of model for her government. I think that was she had some kind of foresight, anticipating the rise of a new fourth industrial revolution and so on. I have forgot to mention about it. France is one of the great powers in terms of nuclear energy, peaceful use of nuclear energy, and that's why France is so strong in promoting the non-proliferation. France is promoting peaceful use of nuclear energy on one hand, and then the proliferation danger is exactly opposite. So Korea and France is already cooperating in the new level of nuclear technology. We have been using nuclear fission technology for power generations. Right. And Korea and France and other countries formed international consortium to have a nuclear fusion technology to generate atomic energy, which is our dream, and we will create a kind of artificial sun, which will provide a kind of unlimited energy sources to support the future economies. And so she has that kind of boosted that kind of innovative approaches to future economy, and that was the fact that she was awarded the honorary doctoral degree is kind of a recognition of the kind of her foresight and vision.
Especially when the summit was going on, the two leaders understood that the high unemployment rate of France, around 10%, especially more than 20% for the youth. It is such a worse than worse situation. South Korea is going through the similar patterns as French has been going on in the past. It means that the national competitiveness has been deteriorated as our country is facing structural problems. So creative economy and also economic restructuring programs based on labor reforms are strongly shared by the two leaders to boost the economy again. So I think the mutual understanding on complementarities and similarities of the two economic structures, two countries, to be more facilitated has been explored enough this time. So a lot of economic delegation members and the following of measures must follow these kind of things to the fullest extent that we could secure our national benefit in the future.
I see. In fact, isn't there a governmental effort called the Korea-France Forum on the New Industrial Technical Cooperation, which has been going on since 2014. So there seems to be, as a policy level, there is a focus on the new growth engines and cutting-edge technologies working on autonomous vehicles and bioindustry and the hydrogen cars and things like that. So it seems like the crisis of employment issues and also the change
industries,
of emerging industries and changing the structure of the industry and the economy, there seems to be some consensus between the two countries.
Yeah, I mean, see, French people are very independent. And that means it's hard to manage them, right? You know how independent Korean people are and also hardworking. So they're managing, I mean, leading people and public opinion into the future is kind of hard. So I think two presidents share the kind of how to lead a nation into a future with the uncertainties, such a rapid changes and so on. So I think that was a significant part of it. And also, you know, because of the new technologies, I think that the economies really require agility. I mean, in order to survive in such an environment, the farmers should act fast, move very fast. That kind of agility. This is why over 80% of those visited France is small and medium-sized economy enterprises and so. So that, I mean, I'd like to find out some kind of comfort in her effort to broaden up other economic opportunities. I mean, as Professor Bang mentioned, youth unemployment rate is very high. I mean, as a professor in college, I feel sorry for about our students there. So, this is such kind of transition.
I think you will feel the same kind of sentiment.
And when business consulting was going on, more than 100 French businessmen, especially in the areas of high value-added industries and also new renewable consumption materials, something like that. Those kind of new future industrial expert and businessmen joined business consulting this time, and I think they produced some fruit out of this business consulting, I think.
I see. I think, as Professor Park mentioned, that labor reform seems to be a very courageous act and very politically very risky act. But what do we learn from that experience? Because we have been trying to push the labor reform for the past 2 years, and it has not been going very swiftly. And the France has been experiencing massive labor unrest and the protest. Is there some learning points?
I think, why France is such an advanced country was proven by this kind of courageous political leaders' decision that at the risk of their political interest, they pushed ahead with the labor reforms. They are strongly protested by labor circles all the time. But President Hollande, he decided with his stern measures for the major interest of French people itself. But look, our country, what's going on? All the political parties are involved in factional strifes, and they are not taking care of the general interest of South Korea, but instead only concentrating on sectoral political issues of their own political parties. It is true that without changing labor market, securing more job flexibilities in the future, our economy will be facing more and more worsened situation in the future. So also another case in Germany, how a former German Chancellor Schroeder has gone through how to reform measures there. After that, he lost power, and he is lecturing on the worldwide stages that he's proud of this kind of political achievement he made to the interest of German people there. We need these kind of politicians. At the cost of a personal political interest, we must think of our national interest more. This is a very good case our politicians must learn from France this time, I think.
Not only for the presidents, but it seems like the same lesson could be applied to a lot of National Assembly members there, newly elected.
We are living in a world and a period which is really filled with uncertainties. I mean, so many things are changing, and I hope the change will be for good, but nevertheless filled with uncertainties. I think people are really afraid of what's going to happen, and then they are angry because they feel that the governments are not doing anything to comfort them and to protect them. That is taking place in the United States, in the support of Mr. Donald Trump. And that happened in Korea in our April 13 election, that the ruling party lost immensely. So that kind of people's fear as well as anger, that is kind of, so what we really have to worry about and be concerned about is kind of populist impulse from the politicians, that they may take advantage of that kind of emotions of the people into the vote. That is a very dangerous thing. And President Hollande showed a good example that the political leader, not just a politician, or a political leader and statesman, how political leaders and statesmen should act in such a period of uncertainties and so on. So I think we have to learn from that, really.
I see. This is very difficult political economy issues. But nonetheless, isn't there opportunity to just expand some trade volumes with France? As you mentioned, it's the sixth biggest country and the third largest economic power in Europe after Germany and Great Britain. But our trade volumes with France has been kind of meager.
Very small.
0.5% in export and 1.4% in import. I'm sure there is a ample opportunity to expand the trade.
Since free trade agreement with European Union was concluded, we expected more trade increase between the two countries, but as of now, we have not noticed any notable increase in terms of trade volumes between the two countries. But as our president's visit this time paved the way for expanding also trade volumes, I think in the future, the increase will be noticed little by little, gradually, especially this time expecting more synergy effect, also to make a base for promoting trade volumes in the future. We also concluded in a cooperative research fund programs in the areas of also autonomous cars and digital healthcare programs, something like that. So all these kind of efforts, this time our economic delegation composed of 169 members, something like that, they all concluded similar contract and also cooperative programs, overall probably helping to improve trade volumes in a medium, long-term prospect, I think.
I see. Kind of same questions to Professor Kim. Do you think there is a room for expansion, not only the technical or the trade volumes, but it seems like there has to be the different levels of collaboration that we can
I was
pursue.
surprised to see that meager statistics. And Korea is seventh largest export country in the world, and we are depending on economy and trade for our economic welfare and growth. And France is such a big, important economy in the world. How is it so meager? That means, yes, it will be, the future will be better than now. And also, the latest summits, the foreign visits by President Park was really geared towards economic exchanges, like visit to Iran and even in Africa and Latin America and so on. So I think it trigger some kind of inflows or outgrowths of that kind of changes in the future, really. Also, we just watch it, kind of the direction, we just discussed the direction of future economies, and two countries are sharing in that area. So it can be a good development in the future.
Right.
This time, as I talked about, we concluded more than 20 MOUs to expand cooperation, especially in a creative economic items and cultural enrichment activities. I think France has shown a strong international competitiveness in aerospace industries and also energy development sectors, atomic energy development. So these kind of new items must be more expanded to South Korean market in the future. Also, out of major exporting items, the French has been developing, especially Airbus and also space industries, equipment, and a lot of pharmaceuticals, cars, also some perfumes, many things will be, I think, more imported to the South Korean market because we are trying to open our market more by reducing non-tariff barriers in the future. I think little by little, I think exchanges will be increasing.
I see. It seems like there are a lot of fronts in the economy that we can kind of collaborate and also expand the volumes to begin with. But that gets into more susceptible areas, how to transform the industry in both countries, and the labor issue comes in. So it's a difficult question, but it seems like it's good to have a partner who's going through the similar experiences so that we can learn from each other.
Yes.
We've talked about the achievement of the President's France visit in the field of economy and diplomacy. Cultural exchanges have been actively promoted, commemorating the 130th anniversary of Korea-France diplomatic ties. Let's take a look at the short video footage first before we continue the discussion on the bilateral cultural cooperation. Let's talk about cultural exchange. This is very interesting. How do you explain the high level of interest in Korean contents in France? I was surprised that not only K-pop, which is kind of obvious, but there are Korean traditional music, as you mentioned, pansori, and also Korean literature as well is drawing a lot of attention in France. Is that because of the very high interest that French people generally have on cultural matters, or is there some particular attractiveness that the Korean content presents to them?
It's very hard to explain. When I was growing up, I learned the French language from Arirang Française. Also, I went to French Culture Center to watch French movies starred by Alain Delon, those kind of old days. Now we are expecting the French people will go to Korean Center to learn Korean languages, catch up Asai and others to learn Korean pop songs and watch, let's say, Korean dramas. I was really surprised to see that only 3 years ago in 2012, French imports of our drama, contents of drama was only $65,000 worth. Now, 2 years ago, 2 years later in 2014, it was 10 times growth. There was $650,000 worth of those content. Well, how can I explain the French interest in those Europeans who always boast of their cultural advantages, cultural greatness, getting interested in Korean culture? Maybe, we just mentioned, we share a little bit. Okay, I think in Korea, Korean people are very active, independent, and hardworking, but at the same time, we have what is called ki in Korean words, ki. I see some similarities in French people as well. Okay, they are very independent, active, and some kind of cultural ki. So they can read the kind of things in Korean cultures recently, like that. Other than that, I cannot explain how those cultural advanced countries.
Professor Park, what can you add to this puzzling?
I heard from a pansori singer, famous. He traveled worldwide, performed pansori singing, and French people showed the most enthusiastic support of pansori's cultural understanding. It means that French people and Koreans share some, I think, natural cultural endowment, something like that. I don't know how to explain this, very difficult. Temper, something like that. So French and South Koreans in personalities shares many common points. Also, not only in pansori areas, why Korean literatures, which has been translated recently, has been such an popular items. The Korean literature translation volumes has been increased, and more French people are showing strong interest in our literature works there. So it means that French and Koreans are sharing a lot of similarities in understanding our traditional values, also on humanitarian value interpretations, because all these kind of things are revealed in literary works and also some operas and K-pop singing contest. Many some enthusiasms and much strong emotional I think support from French people have been increasing nowadays. This is very important, I think.
To a basic level, I guess there is a kind of commonality that all humankind share. I mean, when we hear violin, the tremolo of violin, and the timbre of human voice, and also pansori as well, maybe there is some common emotions that evoke from those different kind of mediums. And Native Americans, Pan-Fruit, I felt the same kind of emotions. But how can we promote this further? How can you make it spread so that it can be enjoyed by more people and increase the cultural exchange, because it obviously highlights the similarities between the people.
I have noticed that we used to have a lot of visiting exchange students, typically from China, and visiting students from Europe is increasing, and also from France. That was kind of a surprising factor to me. And so that is more like a spontaneous. I mean, one of my students is speaking fluent Korean, and I asked her, how did you learn that Korean language? And she got interested through YouTube, and then watched Korean dramas and get really interested and learn Korean language and come here. So most of the times, that kind of cultural interest is spontaneous activity by the people who are interested in. But still government, our president visit to France kind of triggers to further activities to express their interest into actions. So that has done something important, and further some activities like, those our embassies as a Korea Foundation, as a part of our public diplomacy, may try to lead such spontaneous and voluntary activities by private sectors into further deepening and broadening the kind of exchanges.
There are a lot of events, actually. In France, they have designated a Korea Week. So they're promoting some Korean cultures, including the K-pop concerts. They're very popular among the youngsters. In Korea as well, there's a 2015-16 Korea-France year event has been going on. So both countries are kind of promoting each other at this point.
Right.
Is that a positive development to spur the economic cultural exchanges between
That's
the
right.
two countries?
It is spurring positively between the two countries, I think. And also, one example of how our government is making effort to promote cultural understanding to the French people is to be understood by our ministries of culture and also tourism industries programs, which invested about 14 billion won to promote these kind of cultural activities. So it means that our government is also supporting some programs by investing in some money, not only giving them our ideas and our programs, but also our government is investing money there. 14 billion won this time is not small money, I think, in cultural programs. So this is very important. Of course, French government will be responding to similar programs, making Korean understand French cultures. But as you understand, the Korean wave in Europe, especially among French youngsters, is showing really great, very rapid increase nowadays. So a lot of Korean pop singers, K-wave singers are visiting, not only this time, every year. And most popular singers among French youngsters there. This is also a very positive, development recently that the two countries will be more closer in the future, I think.
The President Park, whenever she goes abroad, she does have a significant achievement in that she does well in diplomatic settings. We have a better relationship with those countries, especially China has been a prime example, and also the United States. And this visit also spurs and have a potential to invigorate a lot of different areas, cultural, economic, and also political. Now, how should we follow that up? Not only from the governmental side, but it's not just government effort, is it?
Because we concluded already more than 20 MOUs on the future-oriented items and industries there. I think government must check how the civilian sectors and also private business sectors will follow up all those MOUs properly. And I think the major component of this kind of MOUs must be fulfilled by private sectors. Government will be only helping behind the scenes. So I think following up measures will be much more important. And so far, I think the economic complementarity between the two countries has been properly, I think, explored. And in the future, in the new areas of bio industries, ICTs, hydrogen cars, more programs will be developed. Also, cultural content industries, all these kind of things will be, I think, properly followed by private companies as well as government institutions, I think.
Right. The focus on the private sector role of it, I mean, other than those people who accompanied the president to France, the newfound opportunities or need, we talked about the volumes that might be a kind of low-hanging fruit. What kind of role could the private sector play in taking advantage of these opportunities?
I mean, looking at the meager number of bilateral trade volumes against the backdrop of political, diplomatic, and economic sizes, importance of France was really surprising. So by that kind of, against that backdrop, President visit opened up many opportunities by taking up so many our economic delegations as well. So I mean, all the economists, the people went there because they're struggling domestically, right? So they shouldn't miss that kind of opportunities, really. I mean, so this world is very, very tough world. I mean, we have to cross tough, rough river. And so, I mean, once the political leaders open up opportunities, and the people should not miss that kind of opportunities and utilize to the maximum.
That should be a very important advice to the government. Thank you so much for your insight today. Korea and France share many similar traits politically, economically, and culturally. And to top it off, we also share challenges we face as a nation. We hope the recent state visit by the President Park will trigger mutually beneficial collaborations that can help each other overcome those challenges. Thank you for watching. See you next time.